Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that literally blew my mind when I first connected the dots. We're going to take the abstract and, honestly, sometimes highly emotional world of behavioral psychology and bridge it directly into the cold, hard math of financial independence. If you've ever felt like wealth building is either just bogged down in endless spreadsheets, or maybe it's too focused on mindset without any tangible steps, well, you're in the right place. We are going to uncover this fascinating connection between how we think and how we actually save.
So I gotta ask, what is your freedom number? Look, in the realm of personal finance, this is arguably the absolute most important figure you will ever calculate, period. And we're not just talking about traditional retirement here. This is the exact investment portfolio balance where you can definitively stop trading your precious time for money. It's the number that turns going to work into a choice rather than a mandatory requirement. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's how we're gonna break it all down today. First, defining financial independence. Then, the psychology of wealth. Third, your freedom number math. Next, the magic savings rate. Fifth, accelerating your journey. And finally, risks and reality checks. All right, let's start right at the top. Section 1, defining financial independence. What really is independence? So by definition, financial independence is the accumulation of sufficient resources to cover your living expenses without depending on active employment. Now notice what's missing from that definition. It doesn't say a single word about sitting on a beach sipping pina coladas for 40 years. It's really just about the freedom to make individual choices. It's about financial agency. Once you hit this point, how you spend your Monday morning, totally up to you. But hey, before we can actually calculate that freedom, we gotta look at what's going on inside our own heads. Section 2, the psychology of wealth, mind versus money.
You know, it's absolutely fascinating to look at the gap between how we think we act and how we actually act with money. We all love to think we're making completely rational choices, right? Meticulously budgeting, setting goals, diversifying our portfolios. But researchers tell us a totally different story. Our childhood experiences, our family systems, they profoundly shape our money values. We all carry around this really heavy baggage of behavioral biases. Take prospect theory, for example. The psychological pain of losing $1,000 is way more intense than the joy of gaining that exact same amount. This loss aversion, mixed in with recency bias and herd mentality, is exactly what causes incredibly smart people to completely derail their own brilliant financial plans.
So how do we outsmart our own biased brains? Well, we drop an anchor in objective numbers. Section 3, your freedom number math and the 4% rule. 4%. This one simple number is literally the foundation of the modern financial independence movement. Back in 1998, 3 professors at Trinity University did this landmark study. They looked at rolling 30-year periods of historical market data, and their core finding was just incredible. They found that a 4% annual withdrawal rate from a portfolio of 50 to 75% equities historically sustained a 30-year retirement in over 95% of the scenarios they tested. Boom. It immediately became the gold standard baseline for safe withdrawals. Now here's where the elegance of this math really shines. Mathematically speaking, withdrawing 4% of a total portfolio is the exact same thing as multiplying your annual expenses by 25. That's it. If you take your yearly spending and just multiply it by 25, that resulting number is your exact target portfolio balance. So if you can live happily on $60,000 a year, your freedom number is exactly $1.5 million. I just love how beautifully simple that is once you finally wrap your head around it.
But let's see how this builds when we adjust for different risk tolerances. Traditionally, sure, we rely heavily on the 4% rule. But newer studies, like the 2024 Morningstar analysis, suggest that if you're retiring really early, like say in your 30s or 40s, staring down a massive 50-year horizon, you might want a much larger safety margin. And that's where the 3.5% or even 3% rules come into play. If your target is that $60,000 lifestyle, at 4% you need $1.5 million. But if you want to play it super conservative at 3%, well, that target jumps to $2 million. So it's a highly adaptable framework. You just customize it to your own timeline and comfort level.
Once you have your number, the obvious next question is, how long is it going to take to get there? Section 4, the magic savings rate and time to FI.
And this brilliantly illustrates the most powerful exponential math in all of personal finance. Assuming a standard 7% real market return, if you saved 20% of your income, it takes about 37 years to reach financial independence, starting from zero.
But watch what happens when you simply double that savings rate to 40%. The timeline doesn't just get cut in half. It actually drops from 37 years all the way down to 22 years. You are literally buying back a massive 15 years of your working life. And if you really push it to a 60% savings rate, you're looking at an astonishing 12 and a half years. So why is this acceleration so aggressive? Well, it's because it's a double-ended lever. When you reduce your expenses, you're simultaneously increasing the amount of money you can save right now, and you are permanently lowering the final portfolio target you need to reach in the future. It's a total win-win. Every single dollar you cut from your budget is basically working twice as hard for you.
So how do we practically apply this lever? Section 5. Accelerating your journey. Let's speed things up.
Finding your own personalized timeline really just requires following 4 concrete steps. But step 1, calculating your expenses precisely, is where the math gets incredibly real. Remember that 25x multiplier we just talked about? Well, because of that, every single dollar you spend annually adds $25 to your final target. Think about that for a second. A $200 a month dining out habit is $2,400 a year, which literally adds $60,000 to the portfolio you need to accumulate before you can quit your job. It's a pretty wild mathematical reality check. Now, when you set out to actually optimize those expenses, you're really got to focus on the big 3: housing, transportation, and food. For the average household, these make up 60 to 65% of all spending. It is so common for people to agonize over cutting a $15 streaming subscription while completely ignoring this massive luxury car payment sitting right out in the driveway. But optimizing your housing by downsizing, maybe dropping to a 1-car household, or geographically arbitraging, that has 10 times the impact of cutting Netflix. It's literally the difference between shaving weeks off your timeline versus shaving an entire decade off. As you start building momentum, you'll cross these really powerful intermediate milestones like Coast-Fi. And let me tell you, this is an incredible psychological checkpoint. Coast-Fi is the precise moment when the money you already have invested, if you just left it alone to grow at a 7% real return, will hit your full freedom number by age 65 without you ever having to invest another dime. Reaching this provides immense psychological relief, which connects right back to the mental baggage we unpacked earlier. Once you hit Coast-Fi, you know you don't have to quit working, but you absolutely could downshift into a much lower stress, lower paying job that just covers your day-to-day bills. It's a total game changer. But as incredible as this math is, we do have to test these theories against reality. Section 6, risks and reality checks. Watch out. The first major trap here is entirely behavioral, and it's honestly almost unbelievable when you see it happen. It's called the 1 more year fallacy. This happens when someone successfully hits their calculated freedom number, like they've mathematically won the game, but they're suddenly paralyzed by this irrational fear of not having enough. So they just keep running on the treadmill for 1 more year, and then another, and another. The reality is, once your baseline needs are infinitely funded, additional wealth has diminishing marginal utility. You basically end up trading your most finite resource, your time, for money you literally do not need. But on the flip side of that psychological fear is a very, very real mathematical threat. What if the market crashes on day 1 of your retirement? This is known as sequence of returns risk. Actuarial data proves that the most dangerous threat to a new retiree isn't inflation decades down the line. It's experiencing a massive market drawdown in this first 5 to 10 years. Because a crash like that could force you to sell off shares at rock bottom prices just to buy groceries. So to survive that nightmare scenario, you need strong defensive strategies. You could hold a 1 to 2 year cash buffer so you never have to sell stocks in a down market. You could earn a little flexible part-time income to offset your withdrawals. But honestly, the absolute best defense is having flexible spending. If you have the ability to ruthlessly cut your discretionary spending by 20 to 30% during those few bad market years, the survival probability of your portfolio absolutely skyrockets. Well, we've covered a lot today. The psychology of wealth, the math behind the 4% rule, the magic of a high savings rate, and how to rigorously defend your portfolio. Which leaves us with one final provocative question. If you mathematically reached your freedom number today, would you actually know how to stop working? Financial independence gives you your time back, but you are the one who has to decide what to do with it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this gives you the tools you need to calculate your own path to freedom. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.